Hey guys, it's Yash. Today we're going to build something really fun with Bolt. We are going to build an app that takes in a user's X account details, so their like tweets, for example, and gives the user book recommendations. So the flow is going to be the user comes in, they log in with X, and essentially they get like 5 to 10 book recommendations based on their like tweets. So yeah, let's dive in. Alrighty, so let's get started with Bolt. I went ahead and I did some stuff on ChatGPT, but basically I got like an architecture. The flow is pretty simple. The user logs in with Twitter. We fetch their like tweets using the Twitter API. We process those tweets, which is basically we send it to like OpenAI for keyword extraction. Then we query Google Books. So we have the Google Books API. So we have like a repository of books. And then we display recommendations based on what the user likes and so on. So let's just put all of this into Bolt. So this is a tip that's super important actually because you have a limited number of tokens on Bolt, right? And you want to do some of the initial ideation on either ChatGPT or Claude because it's going to help you save tokens. Just go ahead and like brainstorm with ChatGPT and Claude, and it'll give you like a suggested architecture. And more often than not, especially if you're non-technical, there will be some stuff that you might have forgotten or stuff that you might have left out, which is like critical to the structure of the application. So yeah, I think this is like super helpful. And plus, it helps you save some tokens because you're going to need those as you iterate through the actual app, right? We just copy paste this architecture, and then we go to bolt.new as always, and basically give it context on what we want to do. So, all right, the prompt I've given it is I want to build a book recommendations app that takes a user's like tweets and gives them book recommendations. Here's the potential architecture. And then I essentially just took the stuff that ChatGPT gave me and put it in here. Now, as I was typing this out, like a few thoughts, right? I'm doing this live, so yeah, there's going to be a little bit of back and forth here. But basically, I was just like, okay, maybe we don't have to use Google Books because that just adds another layer of complexity. Why don't we just use ChatGPT or like OpenAI's API to give some book recommendations? Because obviously it may not have the latest books, but it does have a decent knowledge of books, right? So maybe for this V1, we can just be like, okay, you know what, like let's not complicate things and let's just get it to spit out some recommendations so we at least get that much running. And then maybe for V2 in a subsequent video or something, we can kind of figure out how to like connect Google Books. And that way it'll be a little more complex and we'll get some of the latest books in there as well. So quick modification on the prompt, we've omitted the Google Books API. And what we're doing now is just using OpenAI to do this. So let's hit enter and we let Bolt do its thing. And if you've seen some of my previous videos, you know that this part is, well, pretty seamless. You just sit back and, look at it do its thing. Um, and yeah, it's just generating some of the code now, and we'll get a sense of what we need to change and what we don't need to change very soon. Alrighty, so we have a quick preview of the app and then we have some next steps here as well. So I've set up the initial structure for the book recommendations app. Before we proceed further, you'll need to click the connect to Superbase button on the top right. And then once connected, the database schema will be created automatically. So this is really awesome. Superbase now has direct integration within Bolt. So you don't really have to leave Bolt and create some stuff on Superbase. Earlier, you essentially had to like copy paste code from Bolt into the Superbase SQL editor, but you don't really have to do that anymore, which is sick. So you just hit connect to Superbase. I think my account should be connected, or maybe not. We can do that. Um, yeah, we can just be like authorize Bolt. All right, so we have connected Superbase to this Bolt project. It's again doing its thing. So it creates schema, and the noob way to understand this is that essentially it's just an Excel sheet or like a Google sheet where you have data about different users and different actions within your app. So each user will have their own user ID, and every action they take will be linked to that user ID. So especially when you're building like production apps. You can totally imagine why this is important and why this matters. Where like every time a user pays, for example, you want to link that payment with the user's ID so you know which user has paid. This comes in handy when you're blocking access to certain features based on payment tiers, right? So someone on the pro plan may have access to some features, someone on the creator plan might have access to some other features, and so on. But yeah, that's essentially what a schema means. It's just the way you organize the database, essentially. Okay, so we just connected this project to Supabase. We have some steps here. Let's just look at what it's prompting us to do. I just asked Bolt what's next, and it's doing some of the stuff that comes next, right? So it's building out the authentication system, it's building out the layout and navigation, and then I guess here's where we'll bring in like our OpenAI API key and figure out like the Twitter login stuff. I'm guessing that part might be a little complicated. So yeah, let's figure out how that works. Okay, let me just ask Bolt what the exact steps are because it's giving me a lot of information here. I'm not 100% sure how to follow this. So yeah, so I just asked it to give me step-by-step instructions on how to proceed. Okay, sick. So I need to go to the Twitter for Developers tab. So I'm just gonna start with that first. All right, cool. So I'm in the developer portal for X, and I created this project like a year ago, I think, and I still have like the API key and bearer token and all that stuff. So I'm just going to use that for now. We have like a client ID, and then we have some client secret, and yeah, we have all this stuff ready. So let's just go back to Bolt and see what we need to do with that stuff. We need to add a callback URL. So this is our Supabase project.supabase.co/auth/v1. Okay, let me just take this and then first I think we should go to Supabase. So this is our Supabase project URL. So we just take that and we go here. So let's just look at it again. .auth/v1/callback. So we just say /auth/v1/callback. So we just save that. Then we go back to Bolt and figure out how to configure Supabase auth. So we need to go to our Supabase dashboard, navigate to authentication and into providers, and then just enable X as a provider. And then we need to enter our X API credentials into the Supabase dashboard. So let's just go there. Let's hit authentication, go to providers. So we need to add the API key and the API secret key. So let's just do that. Let's go to X and then go to keys and tokens. Sweet. So we have an API key, which we copy and then add it to Supabase. And then we have an API secret key, which we again copy and add here. And then we just hit save. Sweet. So this is done. We go back to Bolt and figure out what we need to do next. We need to create a new database migration. Since we can't modify the existing migration, we need a new one. We need to give Bolt permission to create some new tables. Alrighty, so we have some next steps. We need to add our OpenAI API key as usual. So the Twitter integration is already set up through Supabase Auth. We would need to create some UI components to display the recommendations and handling the tweet analysis process. The current implementation is it stores Twitter tokens securely, it caches like tweets to avoid repeated API calls, and then it uses GPT-4 to analyze tweets and generate personalized book recommendations. I think this is awesome. Like we'll just like apply changes here to Supabase. Attempt fix. And then while this is happening, let's just get our OpenAI API key. It's platform.openai.com. I believe you go into settings and you go into API keys. You can just create a new one. Bolt test. There you go. So you have this secret key. So you just take that and you go back to Bolt. Let's just ask it where we need to add the OpenAI API key. Sweet. So I think we need to add it. All right, here. There you go. Perfect. We hit save. So I'm just going to be like, all right, what else? Can I test it now? just for it to go through the whole code and see that everything's in place. All right, sweet. So we can test now. Let's try it out. Let me just deploy it maybe. All right, sweet. So we have a link here. So let's just go there. Awesome. We say continue with X. Perfect. It logged into my Twitter. And then I think it's gone to like localhost 3000. Oh, interesting. It's not redirecting to the app, right? So I wonder what that's about. Maybe it's, let's look at settings. Okay, I guess we need to add like the website URL, which I believe should be this one, right? The one where our app is deployed. Maybe. And so let's say this. And we hit save. Alrighty, let's try again. So we go back to our app. Continue with X. Goes through Twitter. But then it's going back to localhost. So if you go into the authentication tab, like you can see this user showing up. So this is the user, like this is my Twitter account, right? I'm just wondering why we're being redirected to a broken link. Let me just ask what the callback link should be. What should the callback URL be in the Twitter developer portal? Okay, so we need to have this as the callback URL in the Twitter dev portal, right? So let's just look at that and make sure we have that. All right, guys, so I figured it out. So first things, my Descript bugged out and my screen recording failed. Second thing, I actually figured out my mistake. So what's really important when you're setting up authentication using Supabase is that your site URL is the URL that Bolt gives you for the deployed app, right? So whenever you deploy an app on Bolt, it'll give you like a URL. So that's your site URL in Supabase. Then your redirect URL is this one. It's /auth/callback. So this is the URL that users get redirected to when they successfully authenticate. So this is where we were like tripping up earlier. So make sure this is correct. And then within your X dev portal, like if you're doing login with X, in the user authentication settings, make sure that you have two callback URLs. So first one is the web app. So this is same callback URL as your redirect URL here. The next one that you need to add is your Supabase database URL /auth/v1/callback. This is where we were kind of tripping up earlier, but like, I think it's started now. So anyway, let's see what the deployed app looks like. So this is what users will see. They hit continue with X and you get logged in. So it gives you like a welcome message based on the email that was tied to my Twitter account. And then just like a quick homepage message here. Now that we've figured out this first part, let's try and figure out if the book recommendations part works, right? So we hit generate recommendations. So let's ask Bolt to revise what it's doing to generate book recommendations. What I want Bolt to do is go through the book recommendation flow again. The MVP that I'm thinking of is we want to analyze users' tweets. We get a basic sense of their personality, likes and dislikes, and then based on those, we get 5 book recommendations for them. So let's see what it comes up with. The flow looks good, but let me just give it the error that I was getting. So let's try and generate recommendations again. All right, failed to generate recommendations. I wonder why. So let's ask Bolt to simplify the recommendations flow. Another thing that I saw recently was this idea of like separating auth and the landing page in one Bolt project, and then having like your actual like web app in another Bolt project. This way you kind of keep those two things separate, so you can get auth working properly, and then you can think about the product separately, and then figure out a way to merge the two into one project. But more on that later. Let's see if this thing has worked. All right, sweet. So we're in our dashboard. So we hit generate. Wonder why. Okay. Actually, let's look and see if the tweets are being stored, like my tweets. So cached tweets. So the like tweets are not being stored anywhere, which is fascinating. I noticed that the like tweets of the aren't being cached in Supabase. Why? So let's try again. Boom, there you go. So we have some recommendations here based on my like tweets. I really don't want to go through what these are. I think it's picked up on some of my recent like tweets. The way we can actually make this good, like the recommendations good, is to add Google Books as an API provider. So right now what's happening is these books are coming from GPT-4. I think it has like really, cliched taste. But I think if we were to add like Google Books and just use OpenAI's API to do like a personality analysis based on the tweets and not really like a recommendations directly, and almost like separate those two things, we could get some really good recommendations. But as you can see, like, this stuff is not super hard to build. I think start to finish, if you like kind of exclude some of like Descripts issues and the bugs and so on, like while recording this thing. I think I've been recording for like 50-ish minutes, give or take, maybe even less. And that's really not bad to if you think about what we're making here, which is a custom software based on exactly what the user wants to build. Maybe in part two, we should do a more like high quality recommendations. I think that could be super interesting to build out using some other APIs like Google Books with its own like complexity. But yeah, there you have it. A Bolt tutorial on building an app in around 50-ish minutes. And it's as simple as that. Thanks so much. Until next time.